Okay, how's it going? Good morning, good evening, and let me bring my speaker down to my face, my microphone. What's up, guys? So today we're going to be working on what we were working on yesterday, the API for MySQL. I need to work on my intro and stuff for my video editing, but other than that, let's go ahead and get this wonderful, beautiful, glorious day started, guys. We're going to start off with getting my setup done on the right. Make sure that is on, make sure my screen is up, and make sure my Discord is over on the right hand side. It says we can't hear you. Oh, let's try to fix that. Hello, hello, hello. Well, there I am. Sorry, folks, I've been talking all this time and my voice was off. Thanks to Discord for telling me so. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, my fine fellow friends. It's another wonderful, glorious, fabulous day. We are going to be working on what we were working on yesterday, the MySQL API. So we will be starting with first making sure that our database is, or our code is up to date. So we are on Bible Breeze app. We're on main. Let's fetch it. And yep, yesterday was the last time it was edited. So we go over here, we go to open, we go to Bible Breeze, and open. And show the contents. There we go. Okay, we're here. Now, where were we at yesterday? We were in lib. We had ended at models. We had ended at daily repo, scripture, no, prayer request model. That's where we are. Let's change this pray to pray request because that makes more sense. Pray request. Okay. Test. You know what? Let me make sure that my test. Yep, it's working good. Okay. So we made this little from JSON here. Now we need to go into 6, the data source. The data source, the first thing we're going to do is create the abstract class, because just like 3 and 4 up here where we had the abstract class in the 3 and then the implementation in 4, we're going to do the same here. We're going to have the abstract class up top in 6, call it 6A, and then down in the actual resource repository is where we're going to implement it. This here allows us access to the data source without having to go in here, and it keeps your classes together. Is this really needed? Not necessarily. If you had one more level in here, you would use this. This was when I did have a level in here. It's just kind of old code and I haven't removed it yet. So you don't have to create the abstract class, but I do. Okay, so we're gonna go into what repo are we in? We aren't in DOS, we aren't in local drive, we are in the remote database source because we are reaching out to get this information. So we have here our Bible abstract, or our Bible API, our members API, our daily verse API. Remember, get daily verse entity. Now we are going to have a prayer request. And this is all part of the Bible Breeze remote database source. The prayer request, let's just go with what is it, number 4 repositories. Daily repos where we're at, get prayer request card by request ID. I'm just wondering. I haven't really given this too much thought because when you get to here, let's go ahead and compile this and start it up. When you get to the front end, how are you going to draw those cards? One, you're going to draw by ID, but how are you going to know what ID to get? Let's go look at our other code to see what we did up here in the presentation for the daily repo where that's already being done. Daily verse qubit. Load daily verse by date. Get dashboard carousel. Get Bible version by ID. Get the user member. Await. Get instance. Get Bible version ID. Bible ID. Get dashboard carousel. Internal integer Bible ID. Bible ID equals get user member. Oh, okay. So this says get which Bible it is, whether it's the King James version or what, and then it says get the version by ID. Okay, let's set that over there. So then they get the version. So that's the get dashboard carousel. Is Bible version local? Get Bible version. This is all the Bible. Here we go. Load daily verse by date. And then it has the date. And then get verse entity by entity list and table of contents table. Okay, so this is this here. This here is loaded by date. So that's what this is. But we want to load all of this here. How are we loading this? We're saying by card ID. But how do we know what card ID to get? We don't. So how are we linking this? Well, we go back to our class, our assets Excel table. We go back to the Excel table, assets, this here. Let's see, let me bring it up 1 second, folks. And if you're watching this, you can watch this on Twitch. So if you go back to our Excel table here, we'll see that we have prayer request likes table, prayer request pray table has member ID. Remember, we said I did not save it. We said we needed to save a member ID. We need to add that to the prayer request table. That's who made that prayer request. And then we needed to add another table here, prayer request, prayed, likes, what was it, prayer request, XXX table. I don't remember what it was. We'll remember later. Okay, so what we need to do right now is go into the prayer request table and make a member ID. Let's make sure to save that this time. So let's make a member ID for the prayer request. How do we do that? First things first, we do it locally. So let's go into our local table. Open database, the Bible Breeze database, and we are going to our day prayer request table. Prayer request table, table scheme, request ID, request ID. We are going to add member ID. It's a string text. Are we sure it's a text? We'll take a look. It is, we'll just leave it alone since it's a text. Member ID, okay. Apply that. Yep, looks good to me. Bam, member ID is taken care of locally in the local database. Now we need to set it in our remote database. Let's let's see, database dot. I don't want you to see my login, but I will show you what I'm doing in just a minute. All right, so we are at our remote database. We go into Bible Breeze database. Now we go down to the prayer request table right here, and we are doing what? We are editing the structure. What are we editing? We are adding a, where's the add at? We are adding a member ID to this table. I hear a lot of flipping noise. There's people coming and going. Oh, we got a few people in. Hello, Suzima and the Swee have joined. Let me turn on chat just in case they have anything to say. Okay, so we're adding a member ID. Where is it at? Member ID, member ID. Where's the add button? Change. Addition table. Create an index on one column. Is this it? What do we remember ID? Now this is index. Oh, here we go. Add one after prayer request. There we go. We are adding a member ID. We are going to double check to make sure it's a string. I'm pretty sure it's a string. This here can be a var character of 250. You don't need a whole text.
I didn't get that.
Oh, no, we weren't talking to you, Siri, but thank you. Var char 250. Save it. Now let's make sure that that is right. Go to our here. How do we check to make sure it's correct? We look at an entity. So what does our member entity say? Does our member entity have a member ID of string in it? Lib. Where our entity is at? Our entity is in our domain, under entities, under member entity, under member ID, which is, bam, a string. Okay, we're good. Good. All is good. All is good. All is good. Okay, so we got that. Now we need to add it. So we need to go to our, where we were just at, our entity, our daily repo, prayer request entity. What did we just do? We added a string of a member ID. Member ID of person whom owns prayer request. Final string member ID. Bam. Now everything's going to be red because it's missing. Require this dot member ID. Okay. Now we need to go in everywhere that it's supposed to be at. String member ID. Member ID. Member ID. Is it there? Else this member ID. Alright. Mapping. Okay. Almost done, people. Almost done with the entity. And one more down here. Okay, we are done with 3. We don't need to mess anything with 4, that's the repository. That's just the functionality, but we do need to change the model, which is down in 5 down here, because we added required string member ID. Member ID, member ID. Magic change JSON to code. That's what this is right there. Final member ID equals JSON. Member ID is how we saved it in the database as a string. Member ID, member ID. Okay, we have successfully added the member ID into the code. We've added it to the database. Now we need to change that function that we were going to call it in the repository. We said we were going to call it what? Get prayer request card by prayer request ID. We are not going to get it by prayer request ID. We are going to get it by member ID. Required string member ID. That's how we're going to get it. This is what? Daily verse. And this is what? Prayer request. Okay, since that's an abstract class, wherever we implemented it down here needs to be the same. So it's going to say, hey, I'm missing something up here. It says I'm missing get prayer request card by member ID. So let's just come down here, change it. Get prayer request by card by member ID. Change this to string member ID. Okay, let's go ahead and copy this because we are going to use it. We're going to do this again. This links 3 and 4, right? This links the infrastructure. Well, this here, let's go over to Riso Coder's site. So the abstract links these two areas right here between the between the interface and the domain. Well, the abstract below links outside to inside right here. So that's where we're going right now. We are going to the abstract class right here, which links the outside world with our source code. So what this means is that this right here can be accessed on two ends. It can be accessed inside our code, and it can be accessed anywhere out here in the wide world. It's your interface to your code right here. So you can access it here, you can access it here. You can push a card here. So we are getting a card. So we are going to ask for information. Now when we want to push information out, we will push it. So you pull information is the way I do it. So I get information and then I post information. So get and post are the terminology I use. So I'm getting a prayer card by member ID and I want to return a prayer request. Do I want to return a prayer request entity? Not really. Why would I want to return a prayer request entity? It's just one card. Oh yeah, I do want just one, don't I? I don't want a list. Okay, so I just want one. So that just brought in the package library that says what a prayer request entity is. So this card is going to get all the prayer request entity information and return that all the way up for the front end code to use on right here. So every card is going to call get prayer request card. So this right here is built from this function right here. All right, so now that we got that, we need to implement it. We need to implement it in our, where our remote database is implemented, which is right here. Now this is where the code starts coding. Okay. It says missing concrete implementation of BibleBreeze get prayer card. So let's put it there. Create one missing override. Brings it all the way down right to here. We're going to call this is a huge file. It's going to be big because it's a main interface between the outside world and our code for remote activity, for remote database, for remote MySQL activity. We're going to call this prayer request. Now, look, if you look here, internal functions. So I want to move this above internal functions. My internal functions is just a couple of functions. We'll move it right up here. Get from server. So I use get from server so much that I just made a function called get from server and whatever form data. And I use post to server so much, I just made a little function post to server. And then that's where it posts to. This is my server, api.biblebreeze.com. Index.php is a file. It's getting getted from, and it's getting posted to. So let's look at an example. Let's look at a get example. Here we go. Get daily comment by verse ID. Let's just comment. Let's just copy this right here. Oh, we need this too. Prayer request. All we have is a member ID to get to use. So form data. So we are getting, and to get anything you need it in a map format. Remember from yesterday what our map format is? Our map format is JSON code. To get anything is that guy right there, followed by a key and string, followed by that, followed by dynamic anything, you know? So that's what this is right here. This is our map here. For getting or posting, this is what you're going to do. This is a map you're going to build. Same as, same as like JSON. Your map, your key, and your either string or dynamic action. All right. So all we have is a member ID. The action we are going to be asking for is get prayer request card by member ID. That's what we want. Remember, you can make these as long as you need to. All right. And we don't want to call this belongs to ID. We want to say the key is the member ID, because we're going to the outside world. We're going to a database. So we use an underscore on database. We use Camelback in Dart. Member ID. Okay. Response equals await get from server. Why is this red? Because this is supposed to be an asynchronous function. If the response is false, return the left up here that it's a failure, database failure. we can expound on this. Maybe we will in the future once we do some code refactoring, and we can call this something like prayer request failure instead of just database failure. So the result is whatever the JSON comes out as, and then you return the result. This is where that factory magic happens. We are going to be returning a what? A prayer request model from JSON. And I called it X, but it's actually, let's call it JSON so we understand. Okay. So then whatever it returns, now remember I said a map is like this, but you can have multiple maps. So you can have multiple of these separated by a comma. So you can have multiple entries separated by a comma. So if I ask for something from a member ID and that member has 10 prayers, it's going to return 10 prayers. So you need to be able to accept those. So that's what this does right here. It expects a list. Even if it gets one, it's still expecting one or more. It expects a list and it returns result. It maps through that list, which is, we're going to call it JSON. It just maps through X, and it runs it through the factory prayer request model from JSON, which is this guy right here, prayer request model from JSON. It runs it through this. So it takes the JSON data that it's receiving and it runs it. It looks for this and it turns it into this. This is where that code happens. This is where the code happens. This is where the code is called. The magic is called. Not code happens. That's where the magic happens. This is where the magic starts. Right here. It starts right here. So prayer request model from JSON to list, return. It's looking for a list. We did not ask for a list, so now we need to ask for a list because it can be more than one. But we don't want one, we just want one. So if all we're asking for is one, all right, here we go, think a little bit. We just want one. We just want this one card. We don't want a whole list of cards. So if we ask for member ID, we're going to get back 10 cards. So we need either a date or something along that line. So this is actually getting this card right here. So what do you need to get one individual card? Well, let's go back to our Excel sheet. So what do you need? You need the request ID. You need the bool answered. So you would go off the request ID pretty much. So to get that, you go off the request ID. Now down here, we have multiple lists. We have a community prayer request list. We have a requested prayer list. We have received prayers. So requested prayers is this right here. If we ask for a requested prayer list, we're going to ask for everything in that list. So what we need to be actually doing, instead of looking for this one card, we need to fill either this, or this. One of these, we need to fill one of these lists so that we can then click on it so that it fills this card. Then the get get prayer request card by card ID will be used, or by member ID will be used right here. We don't want this by member ID. We want get prayer request prayers by member ID. We want this list. And then you click on this item, and then get prayer request card by card ID, by request ID, not member ID. All right. These are things you have to think of before before you just start coding. I did some coding, but I did a little extra coding that I'll need to do in the future. I don't need it right now. What I need right now is a list. So let's go ahead and build that list real quick. We're going to fly through this since we are starting to understand what's going on. We're going to first go to, well, let's clean up red. So return list. It's looking for a list. Get prayer request card by member ID. This should actually be by, let's replace this. Refactor, no. Let's see, rename symbol by request ID. Okay, everywhere that is now by request ID, prayer request entity. This here. String. It's actually a prayer request ID. And this string is an integer. Alright. And we need to make sure this up here is an integer. Prayer request ID. Okay. So now it's not going to do all of this list, and it's not going to map it. We're only looking for one card, so we don't need a list. We just need to do this once. So to do it just once, we're going to take the result and we're going to run it through once. There we go. Okay. That's what it is. So that just runs it through once, one time and done. But you say, hey, Calvin, we're doing this, but how are your checks? Remember I said that I use this get from server down here. Go down to get from server, and that's where it checks for a 200 status code or error. It bails out on the error. So your error checking is down here. All right, so we need to start back up at entities. Let's go through this real quick. First off, what are we doing? We are getting prayer request prayers by member ID. We want this whole list of prayer requests. We want a prayer request prayers by member ID. So we need a list of prayer requests, right? Okay. Do we need to rewrite a prayer? Do we need to make this do we need to turn this into a list somewhere? No, because we know lists are in Dart. We already have an entity, so all we got to do is create a list and put however many entities we need in it, create a list and put however many entities need to be in that list. So we don't need to create some list prayer request entity thing. So that's done. Repositories, daily repo. Let's go into our abstract. Do we need a function? Yes, we need a function. What is that function going to look like? It's going to look a lot like that one, but a little bit different. It's going to get prayer request prayers by member ID. And it's going to have a member ID. And remember this, we turned it to integer prayer request ID card by prayer request ID. All right. Same thing down here for daily repo implementation by prayer request ID. Prayer request. And it's going to say we are missing an implementation, so let's go ahead and create it. Create one missing override. Now, something we didn't do earlier is we didn't wire this up. We didn't wire up between 4 and 5 and between 3 and 4. So if you look here, all the wiring that is required is if await app is online, return left, else return equals await. It's just calling the function. That's all you do is call it. It checks to see, the only check in here is to see if the app is online. If it's not, then it calls it. So that's all we do here. Is the app online? Nope. And it needs to be an asynchronous function. Is the app online? Nope. Turn the networks off, else return API get prayer request card by prayer request ID. Probably spelled that wrong. Let's let API tell us what it is. Get prayer request card by prayer request ID. There we go. Oh, parameters missing. Okay. So that's all that wiring is. Let's go ahead and do that wiring here too so we don't forget again in the future. All this does, oh, you first need to make your code up here. All this does is it links your implementation with your source, your API source, because it calls API right here. API is actually your require this API. API is this guy right here, this abstract class. Remember I said you can access it in and out, and it was calling this guy right here. Get prayer request card by prayer request ID. And this should be abstract, so it's not an actual function. Sorry about that. Pardon me, I got work calling. Let's see. Oh, I need to reboot my server because I just installed a new kernel and stuff on the server, so I'm rebooting it now, and they were just acknowledging that. All right, so back to our code. All right, so what have we done? We've gone to 4. We did 4. We did prayer request card by prayer request ID. We want to leave that file open because we're going to come right back to it. And we want this guy right here. We want to implement this get prayer request prayed by member ID. That should be 3. Yeah, that's 3. And we implement it down here. Get prayer request prayers by member ID. Okay. And it's going to do the same API call, but it can't call it. Cannot call the remote database because the function isn't in there yet. So we need to go into the remote database. That's why this is here. We need to go into the remote database here, not at 6, but here. Oh, it is in 6. Right up here to there, to the remote database. And we need to create an abstract class right here so that internally we can access the external functionality, if that makes any sense. That's all we do right there. Future either failure, we're going to return, oh, are we returning a prayer request entity? No, we are not, people. This is saying that it's missing an implementation, so we just come over all the way up here, quick fix, create a missing implementation. It pops it down on the bottom, but what are we doing? We don't want it on the bottom because we have a couple of functions internally on the bottom. Sorry, my page said closed. So we're going to put it right here. All right, so we got a few files open. Let's go back and see what's going on with them. First things first, we have the prayer request. This is all the way back up into here. This is where we're at. We're at 3. What's wrong with this? We need a list. That's what's wrong with it. We said we wanted to return a list of prayer request entities, which are all of these, not just one. Not just one. We want to return all of them. So we just simply take that prayer request entity, bam, turn it into a list. That's on 3. Then what we do in the abstract class, you have to do in the implementation class. So prayer request member IT, prayer request entity is a what? It's a list. Bam. All right. Now let's go ahead and do the wiring since everything is in there. Copy that. Looks good to me. Look good to you? Looks good to me. If, oh, what's wrong? It's an asynchronous function. If await if the app is not online, return network connection failure, else return API. And what are we doing? What kind of API are we asking for? We are asking for a get prayer request member, prayer request prayers by member ID, prayer request prayers by member ID, member ID, member ID. There it is. Return result. The reason it's bailing is it says, hey, I don't want a member ID, I want a list of member IDs. I'm talking to work on the other end. All right, so we don't want to return a single one, we want to return a list. So let's go up there and fix that. It's saying, hey, external world, you're sending me a single one. According to this API, all I'm getting back from you is a, right there, either a failure or a prayer request, but I don't want that. I want either a failure or a list of prayer requests. So that's what the API is offering. So the API isn't giving me what I want. So either we fix our internal code for what the API provides, which can be done, or if we have access to the API, we fix the API so that the API provides what our code needs. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to fix the API right now by making this a list. There and there. Now, if you go back one, it is happy because it is now returning a list of prayer requests. close 3, close 4. We're at 6 and 6. We're not in 5 because what's 5? 5 is models. We don't need models because we determined that we don't need to change anything. It's just a list. So we are here at prayer request. We implement it down here. Prayer request member ID. We are returning a list, right? List, there you go. All right. And let's go ahead and wire it up while we're here, because it doesn't take a lot of wiring. We already know what we're going to do. We're going to do a form. We're going to ask for something. Pretty self-explanatory. Now after this, we're going to go do a little PHP. All right. Why are we here? Because that doesn't exist. Now, remember, are we in an asynchronous function? Yeah, we are. We're asynchronous. Make sure you async it. Did not async it, or else you're just going to wait. And wait and wait. Form data, form action equals, what are we doing? What are we going to ask? We are going to ask for all right. So get prayer requests correct. Sorry, folks, I was talking on the other line. Sorry for the quietness. Get prayer requests, prayers by member ID. That's what we're going to do here. And then the dynamic member ID. And we are passing a string member ID. And it's going to tell me I don't need all that. Unnecessary string interpolation. Okay, member ID is all it needs. So we're going to pass this action. We're going to pass that. We're going to wait for a response from server. Response is going to be that. Now, we don't want this, because this is just one. It's going to say, hey, I don't want one, I want a list. So let's go back up where we had gotten that, where we picked up that code originally, which was about here. See, JSON encode the result. We're going to decode it. We're going to decode it by running it through our factory. Where's our error at? Let's see. Get daily, get prayer request by member ID. We're going to remove this, and we're going to run it through a map. We're going to call this map JSON right here, and this is JSON. Now we can call this list, we can actually call this list the prayer request entity list, if you want to get real technical, and then you return the prayer request entity list. But it doesn't want to return. Why not? Let's find out. Because the argument list daily comment model can't be assigned to the parameter type list prayer request model. That's what you get when you copy and paste. Prayer request model is what we're looking for. We are running that from JSON. We go here to the implementation. We go here to the definition, prayer request model from JSON. This is where the magic happens. This is where the magic is called. Okay, we are on step 6. We have done everything locally. Now we just need the code in here. Right? Right. So we need to get this information. So to get this information, here, let's put something on the, well, let's not. So to get this information, we need to go open up our database file, open a new window. Let's go to our remote server. Is it API? Yep, it's API. We want to access our API on the remote server. Oh, it's going to be a little funny because it changed. Let me go to the remote server. Oops. Oh, remote. Yeah. Need to go to the remote server. Remember, we just rebooted it. So I gotta. Uh-oh. My remote server might not be up. Well, get that off my face. Okay. Well, I'll have to fix the remote server, but while we're here, let's go ahead and get the front end going, because the only thing we got left is creating the API, because everything is wired in the back. But let's put something up front here. Let's make a list. Remember that site that they showed us yesterday? Let's use that site from yesterday to fill this card. So where are we at? We are all the way up in lib, presentation, daily repo, prayer request page. That's where we're at. We have some fake user information there. That's probably the card itself. So that's that. We want this list here, the prayer request prayers. So the prayer request prayers is where? Scaffold, rounded. Community prayer requests. Prayer request text goes here. Prayer request title. This is the actual card. Now we want the requested prayers right here. Requested prayers. We're going to rename this to prayer requests. Alright, that's what we want. We're going to the prayer requests. Close some of these out. This right here is all of this right here. So let's see. Let's leave builder. Depth 4. So did it make just 4? I guess that's what this depth is. Let's try depth 10. Oh no, depth is how low it is. So I see 4 on the screen. How many does it make? Hello, how's it going?
Do you know, can you recommend me a guide where I can set up my Dart and Flutter dev environment.
You need to set up your Dart and Flutter dev on what platform? Daylight, what platform are you using? I can't hear you, buddy. All right. So where are we saying that this is list view builder? Where's the count? Item count. There it is. Prayers request length. Where are our prayers? This is a list of prayers. Where do we get this? Prayer request. Prayer request prayers. Where's our prayers at? Control F. Prayers. Equals prayer test prayers. Where's test prayers? Oops. Prayers, test prayers. Here we go. Prayer test prayers. Prayer ID 1, message prayer 1. Oh, okay. So it's got 4. Let's make a few more. Well, let's just leave it at 4. Prayer 3, user 3. Okay. So it's on there. So the front end guy has already done it, but we need it actually on the card. Let's see, child pneumorphic, top left, radius, border radius, border radius. We want it right size box. Where's our child, pneumorphic child? I'm gonna build a padding widget child, alright. Size box, width, height, child, pneumorphic, widget child, curve, text inset, text style, pneumorphic, curve, edge inset, and bool. Right. Does this have a child? It does not. Guess what it is going to have now? Here's we go right here. I'm not good at front end, folks. It's not my thing. There it goes. Alright, we just said test, so there it is right there. Test, 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 test. Alright, so now we want it to be prayer dot, oh, is it, what's it called? It's called context prayers list, context prayers dot link, prayers dot prayers index dot username. User 1, user 2, user 3. Okay. All right. So we'll just use that. So that's where we're going to stop. We know the username is on there. We're going to call this a member ID. So all the front end is right there. We're going to call this a stopping point here. How long have we been coding? We've been coding for an hour. Perfect. Perfect time. All right. Thank you for watching today. Tomorrow we will I'll be done with the API tomorrow. So we'll work on something else. I'll figure it out today and I'll let you guys know what it is tomorrow. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit a like, hit a subscribe, and hit a follow if you're on Twitch. You have a good